Glad to have you listening to The Public Square today. This conversation is really a continuation of a conversation we've been having about books and reading here on The Public Square. And you ask, why is that an important issue? Well, it's a critical issue, Dave, we think, and we're happy to talk about it.
Yeah, we got inspired, Wayne, by an article in the front cover, actually, of the August edition of Atlantic, formerly known as the Atlantic Monthly. And since it's the oldest periodical that continues to be published in America and considers itself sort of a place where America is defined in its articles and its debates, we pay attention to it, as do a lot of other people. Now, we disagree with a whole lot that we read in the Atlantic, so please don't take this as an endorsement. But there is an article that came out titled "The Age of Reading is Over," which provoked all of our attention. We've read through the article. There's some interesting points, some fascinating points to agree and disagree with. And we've been talking with it. And since all of us come from a background of reading, there are people here who are educators. There are people here who are authors and educators. There are people here who are composers. People here who are content creators in the new digital era. We are in the business of communication. If the Public Square, our logo is the light post, the lamp post. The idea is you come here to learn something, to see something that perhaps you haven't seen before. This is a big deal for us. And so we've asked Rachel Walgate to sit with us for another conversation because she's got 22 years in education in America. And so when you get an article like this, which is written by a very young woman who's not been in a classroom, she still has a lot to say that's interesting. I want to bounce it off a school teacher. Now, you guys come from generations of school teachers as well. So, okay, Rachel, how big do we have a crisis going on right now? How would you rate this thing? What's going on in the teachers' lounge? How are they talking about it?
I would say we're at crisis, but I think this crisis can be managed. If I think about a scale of 1 to 10, I would say maybe a 7 right now. I think it's able to be turned around, but I think we need to do it quickly.
What's the trend? Were we at 5, 6 to 7, or have we been at 7 for a long time in your mind?
No, I would say since we started to get iPhones in hand, I remember 2008, my first student brought an Apple iPhone and no one else had them. And I would say since the year of about 2011, 2012, we started at a 3, 4, and we've went down since then. We've went up to that 7.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So this is a very serious trend.
I absolutely believe so. And with AI coming in so fast, we have to get a grip on it.
And to the Atlantic's credit, they do bring in a section on AI. And now I sort of feel like, it was one thing in football. If you got double teamed, you sometimes you had a chance. You learned techniques but you never survived a triple team. All right. And it's just like you're dead. All right,
maybe Myles Garrett.
Yeah.
But other than that.
Maybe. Yeah. You're out of the play. Okay.
Well, the thing for me is when Rachel would come home and talk to me about grading in kids' writing, and she would have to put things through an AI check to see if they wrote it with AI.
AI is used for absolutely everything. It does think for them. And I'm not even a proponent of getting rid of all AI. I think there are times when it can be helpful. But if it's so easy for kids to do every assignment and read for them and think for them, that is where I'm scared.
I'm sorry. It's not this. Thank God this program doesn't bear my name. It never has after all these years from 1989 forward. But I'm sorry. When it comes to AI, I am a get off my lawn guy. The whole thing just makes me want to hurl. I don't want to touch it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to be a part of it. It just angers me at such levels because I started reading Russian literature when I was in junior high school. C.S. Lewis and That Hideous Strength of 1945. Now, I wasn't there in 1945. Transformed my entire thinking about totalitarianism and the power of words, let alone when I finally came to the reality of the Word of God in the person of Christ and understand that God's whole communication to us is this: we exist because God spoke, and then there was light. We exist because the Word of God was made flesh and came to earth. Okay? I mean, words matter, and when I see machines and words displacing human thought, And here's my question. In the classroom, do the kids think AI is smarter than they are?
I don't know if I still think, at least the students I work with, I think they are smarter. but they
great
don't
news.
know what they don't know. And they don't know that they don't process information. They think that just because their IQs are there and they don't read my assignment, they AI their notes, they come in, they take a notes quiz.
Wait a minute. What does it mean to AI your notes? What does that mean?
You can take our textbook. I've done it. I will AI things because I need to know what they're doing. And it takes, if I AI my textbook, my chapter or unit, it will give you beautiful notes. So they just print that off. They don't read it. They come in. I say, okay, I'm going to hold you accountable for the reading. Here's your notes quiz. Some of them are very smart. They can skim very fast. I have to get very creative on how I ask them questions that are high level comprehension to hold them accountable so that if they're at least going to AI, they can read the AI notes, but they can get really good at asking it questions. They can get used to the level of questions that I ask, honors level, AP level. It will think for you. And there's been AP economics questions I type in. It will give the wrong answer, but I understand the content. A lot of the time, it is accurate. It is right. But that's my point. Unless you've learned to think, and reading is such a crucial part of that, they don't know what they don't know. They just see it as an easy way out, and they really don't value learning. And that's where this generation, we have to find a way to meet them where they're at, whether it's young kids and the incentives we talked about, or teenagers love a challenge. They love to be challenged. And if you tell them, is this real or not? If you put up a picture that's AI'd with two historical figures that should have never existed and it looks real as all get out, and they're like, yeah, it's real. And I'm like, actually, you're wrong. Tell teenagers they're wrong. You'll engage them.
I see this all the time, all this AI slop when it comes to history. So I am a Civil War reenactor. I'm probably the oldest Civil War soldier out there. And I see these AI.
You do know the war's over.
So but I see these AI generated Civil War, or I'm pretty good on World War II and the Revolutionary War also. And the uniforms are completely wrong. The sequence of events is totally wrong. Then they just give wrong data. They are factually incorrect. And yet, as I'm watching this, I'm thinking, am I the only guy catching this?
You know, Jeff,
what about all the kids who don't know history at all? They think this is true.
I can remember we had Rachel Walgate on this conversation once before, and we talked about how her students were getting A's on World War II history coursework. And this is several years ago, and it was because they had become so proficient in World War II video games.
Yeah.
That
Call
they
of
knew
Duty.
the facts, they knew the dates. You thought they were cheating.
There was a kid, I forget, this was probably 10 years ago, and he got D's on every test, and then World War II came around, and he seemed a little more interested in class, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. He took his test, and he aced it. And I said, all right, I'm going to ask you, I'm not going to punish you either way. Did you actually study or did you cheat? And he said, actually, Mrs. Walgate, I played Call of Duty, and there's a really good D-Day game, and he played it, and it pops up all these little snippets of information, and he soaked it in, and it caught his interest. And I think, again, that is where all kids are different. Some are going to love World War II and the Civil War. Some are going to hate it. Some are going to love math. Some are going to love it. But AI will do their math for them too. So unless we find a way to show them why that knowledge is valuable, they will not learn it. The tools are there to make it so easy for them.
What happens when the energy is pulled out? What happens when there's no electricity? You've got to do stuff on your own.
But you can tell them that they're teenagers until they're blue in the face. They don't see those realities, and they don't care. And so until you can, and that's where I'm in teenage world, where if you challenge them, they will rise to it. But we are going to have to get creative on what that looks like. And in fact, some of my lessons going back are going to be, is this AI or not? I am purposely, their assignment will be figuring out if this is AI factual, and there will be falsehoods, and they will have to prove to me why. If you engage them, and I think it's what Alan said earlier, you loved comics when you were a kid and it engaged you. Kids are still kids. Whether it's Dog Man or the comics you referenced earlier, you have to find a way. And as educators and as adults and parents, we have to understand that as well. They didn't grow up with a book in their hand. They grew up with a phone. So how are we going to use tools to engage them?
Even beyond the academics, though, what bothers me is being able to take kids' imaginations or their headspace and take it captive In Colossians 2, we're told not to see to it that no one takes you captive through hollow and deceptive philosophy. How are kids going to avoid that pitfall if they don't have the firsthand knowledge from primary sources? For example, you can read something about the Declaration, but until you read the Declaration itself, you can read something about George Washington that might be true, might be false, but if you haven't read his letters, or more scary right now is the whole Democratic Socialists of America and how their whole perspective on what civil government structure should be is so out of whack because, from my perspective, they have to be lacking in a base of knowledge of what works historically.
When we come back, Rachel, I'd like to ask you for some more of those ideas, creative things that you do to encourage kids to read. And we'll talk about that. And Alan, as far as comics are concerned, I can remember all the way back to 10th grade being assigned to us to match up Shakespearean quotes with cartoons. And I've never forgotten those quotations from Shakespeare because of that. So there you go. It works, right? How about that? And I'd like to hear some of those ideas that Rachel has coming up.
And I want to hear some of the cartoon references when we come back.
I want to see that.
Okay.
Where is that?
I want to know if you can do it with the cartoon character voices.
It's all turned to dust by now, believe me. All right, we'll come back on the Public Square. You stay with us. More about reading and the importance of reading. Stay with us.
We'll be right back for more on the Public Square.
Need a breath of fresh air? How about a musical pause that brings a moment of refreshment? Hymns on the Square is the place to gather to hear the inspiring music of artists who have contributed to this mission for decades. Visit thepublicsquare.com and walk on over to Hymns on the Square for a free concert of hope and a breath of fresh air. Hymns on the Square at thepublicsquare.com.
Every day, 535 people are charged with representing all of us in Washington, D.C. They preside over the largest budget in the world. They hold the Constitution in their hands. They can help protect our liberties or look the other way. 535 people. We put them in office. Isn't it time that we hold them in our prayers? A public service message from the American Policy Roundtable. Spreading the light of liberty across the land. Now back to the Public Square.
Panel and our guest, Rachel Walgate. Yes, Rob's wife, Rachel, who's a longtime public school teacher, are here
Call
to...
her Walgate 2.0. It's
Walgate
definitely
2.0.
an upgrade.
Yeah.
I said some would say. I didn't say I said that.
Rachel, I have a daughter who's a teacher like you. She's a doctorate of language arts, and she teaches junior high, right? And I love to hear her stories of how she engages kids in books. She has them act out Shakespeare in costume in class. I mean, that's one thing. What are some of the things you've done?
Well, my realm is a little bit different, just being in history, but more primary sources and how to make those fun. Okay, let's be real. I'm a realist. Most kids, there's times when I don't think they're fun. So how can we? I'm a high school teacher, so high schoolers are challenging you every day, and I love that, and I love to challenge them back. And so maybe you give them a false premise. And they're like, well, I don't think that's true. Well, tell me why. I mean, I do live with Rob Walgate, okay? I've learned how to argue.
Our apologies.
I've learned how to argue. So when I go to school, this is child's play. And it's a lot of fun kind of calling them out. And if you kind of engage them with the challenges, they will dig into the information.
Wait, just to be clear, which is Child's Play, arguing with Rob or with your students? I want to be clear on this.
Well, sometimes Rob, but I'm kidding. He's pretty good, I'll admit.
Rob. We love him.
Well, and now going back to the Atlantic, between these two publications in July and August, I've read so much, and sometimes the reading is in the wee hours. So some of the articles get a little blended together. But I remember, I think it's in the July article, not Rose Horwitz's article, but a different one about teaching history. The comment was made that over the years, recent years, last several decades, that the teaching of history has been relegated to coaches. And the author said basically that in interviewing different people, they said, yeah, we all had the same history teacher with the same first name. It was Coach. And I thought to myself, okay, Mrs. Walgate, what? Sorry, excuse me, what?
Well, yes, that is true. I teach with most coaches, and I was also hired in as a coach. So there is some truth to that. But I will say the coaches that I work with do care about history at the same time. And I think you have to care about it. You have to show kids why it is important. And that doesn't mean every single thing will be interesting. But if you can hook them into some things.
Rachel, I have to tell you, two of my dearest, respected teachers that I had in my lifetime both taught history, and both were magnificent coaches. They gave me a love. One of them taught Shakespearean literature as well.
That's amazing. That would not be the coaching stereotype, I have to say.
And Rachel still coaches to this day. It always amazes me. Like, I'm not the best with teenagers. I'll be the first to admit that. We coach basketball together. The amount of respect that they have for her when she walks in, but she speaks their language. She talks teenager. She doesn't say anything different than what I would say, but it's how she says it and the way she communicates. And, Wayne asked like some of the things she does. I'm going to ask her to tell the story. There's a board member from the American Policy Roundtable that has been a guest speaker in her class numerous times. And she talks about him being one of the best speakers that she's had in to speak to the kids in the story that Norm tells.
See, everyone was thinking, oh, she brings in W.B. Allen, America's preeminent philosopher. No, she brings in Norm. Normie comes in. Okay.
I think Norm is wonderful, and he's come in for several years about
Let me explain Norm.
Yes.
Norm
please,
was
I want
in
to hear
Vietnam, all right, out of high school, and got blowed up twice in Vietnam, all right, and lived to talk about it. So he comes in and talks about Vietnam.
Yes, and if I can use the kids' words, Norm has street cred, okay? He can come in and establish himself as understanding where they're at in their high school walk. And he can tell them what he was doing in high school, and they can relate to it in a very appropriate way. And he then teaches about Vietnam and his time and how Vietnam changed him as a person. And kids can relate to that. If you come in as your teacher that says, okay, we're going to read Shakespeare today, and they don't connect to it, you might as well throw it out the window. And that's where I think today's kids are different, but we can still meet them where they're at. We can have a balance. We can engage them in different creative ways and get them to still learn.
You're telling us that in spite of how easy it is to look down at young people, number one, that's something you don't do, you've never done. And secondly, you're hopeful that these kids could be smarter than people think?
Oh, absolutely. And I have a quick story about my son, RJ. He organized a wiffle ball tournament. Some of his buddies helped them. They were so engaged in this. It was so much fun. It was very legit with a lot of teams and logistics, and they were drawing out these brackets on old school poster board. I've never seen kids work that hard on a project, maybe ever in 22 years, but they had a felt need to do it. And they cared. And I even joked because there was a lot of math with their measuring and all these specific things. And I said, oh, you can't AI that, can you? And I laughed to myself. And they were like, yeah, no. And they did a phenomenal job because they cared. And they saw the reason that they were doing it. And again, that's the hard challenge today. The challenge of not keeping the Alexandria Library going. Our challenge is how do we show kids that this is relevant? This is important. And it's not just about letting everything go into AI and doing information for them.
Well, I mean, I just hear you caring about kids. I just hear you loving kids. And because you said at the end of the last segment, these kids didn't grow up with a book in their hand. They grew up with a cell phone in their hand. And why would adults look down on kids for that? Who gave them the phone? Who pays for the phone?
Bingo.
Who invented the phone?
Yeah.
Who invented the AI? We could stop. We could slow down, or maybe not stop. I mean, China's not stopping, so I get why you might not want to stop. But you could. Grown-ups did all this, not kids.
And who models overusing the phone? Ourselves.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
mom and dad a lot.
True.
Dad in the Wallgate scenario, a lot of instances. RJ tells, I'll get on him in his generation and I'll say, man, you guys are soft. And he comes right back at it and he just looks at me and goes, if I'm soft, it's because of how my parents raised me. I didn't come soft on my own. And I start looking around and I don't know who taught the kid how to debate, but he's not bad at it.
I was watching a child, and I happen to know this child's parents quite well, and they're very concerned about cell phone exposure. And this child had she grabbed a friend's toy phone. Her fluency on thumb typing at the age of 3 and the simulated activities that she had seen from adults was, first off, it was cute as all get out. It was hilarious to watch. And then it terrified me.
Yeah.
Because I thought they're watching everything they see that we do.
Well, yeah, and think about how many times just the TV is on in adult world. Kids see the TV on all the time.
See, we're going back in Christmas in America this year to 1955, and that takes us back to Why Johnny Can't Read. And I'm beginning to think Rachel's going to have to be one of the special guests on Christmas in America, and Why Johnny Can't Read was at 55, but it actually goes back to 1925. Our year this year is 1955. And that's the first year that Americans as a population had 2/3 of the population had a television in their home. And people predicted that would change everything because that distraction would change everything. They weren't wrong.
Yeah.
They weren't wrong. But basically, if what they were saying is right, then I'm pretty dumb because I'm just of the generation. And Jeff, you're pretty dumb because you're kind of in that neighborhood. And Melanie, well, no, you're not quite that old. So, but so the question does technology mean we have to get dumber?
Well, my daughter, when her kids want to be on a video game, first of all, they limit it. Maybe 20 minutes a day, but you can't have that 20 minutes until you read to me. So they're building it into them wanting to read so that they can get to something else that they want.
I think overall, we're always going to have new technology. We do need to make, obviously, reading the priority. And I think it does start in the home. We have to prioritize it. They have to see mom and dad reading and taking time to talk about it. And we haven't done that as a society. We've gotten busier. Devices have helped adults do things more easy and do more workload and email on the go. It's a societal problem. And America is so blessed. Of course, 2/3 of people having a television, of course, they're going to be distracted. Other countries where kids don't have that opportunity and you give them a classic book, but they know that their key to a better life is reading, they don't care how boring that is. And our kids, even our impoverished groups in this country, live like kings and queens. And so it's really hard to show kids why it matters when they have that lifestyle.
Wow. So prosperity, again, can also be a difficult thing. So Rachel, I'm going to ask you to settle an argument. We've got an ongoing argument here about can kids read and write in cursive? What are you seeing out there?
No, they cannot. I think there's some trends now to reverse that. It's early trends about cursive, especially with cursive, teaching that because you can, if you want them to read and take notes, you can take notes quicker in cursive. But again, we're not taking notes on paper. We're taking notes on technology. And so that's going to be the battle.
That's the official word, ladies and gentlemen, that cursive thing. It's not a conspiracy. It's not something that some conservative talk radio people cooked up.
They can't.
on ground zero. Kids can't. And so that is, should that bother us?
I'm mixed on that because, no offense, Rob, but he can write in cursive, but I can't read it. So some of those founding fathers, it's really hard for me to read their writing as well. Do we know that the interpretation of that cursive is legit? How do we make sure we know that and I'm okay with it? But it probably wouldn't hurt to learn a little bit about it.
So join us next time for more stories from the Walgate household here on the Public Square. Rachel, seriously, thank you so much for being here for these conversations. If you missed the earlier conversations in the series, they're all online, of course, at thepublicsquare.com. Panel, thank you. We'll see you next time on the Public Square.
The Public Square is a broadcast service of the American Policy Roundtable.